بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Yeah, so I checked about 6 books. I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything specific on it. So, but the definitions that came for the difference between hilm and sabr, for the definitions of sabr, it's more like something happens to you or you have to do something. And from hilm, it's more like you have to, it's more about other people, I think. That's what, but even then, it's not proper definition. I couldn't really find anything proper definition on it, to be honest. So,
what's the translation for perseverance?
For patience.
For hilm.
Hilm is it's like forbearance. It's like forbearance. So it's like in a certain situation that you need to do certain things. Then you do that. But sabr is more about you have to do something. And I think hilm is more about your reaction, I think.
Yeah, that's what I read by the Prophet the instance of Taif, where he was treated really badly, but he still reacted with mercy.
Yeah.
And that's him.
Yeah.
That's what I heard many.
It's a very difficult question, to be honest, because there isn't a solid answer. Because I checked Ihya al-Ulumuddin, there's nothing in there, nothing that I could find. Maybe there might be something in there that maybe someone else can find, maybe, I don't know. And I checked the summarization of Habib Umar, and I couldn't find anything in there either. So I don't know, maybe someone else can find an answer, but I couldn't find anything solid on it, to be honest. Because even the definition about, it's about what the people, it's about how you react to the people, that's part of sabr as well. So it's not, I don't know if there's a solid answer, to be honest.
The definition of forbearance is basically patience, self-control, restraint and tolerance. The example is his unfailing courtesy and forbearance under great provocation.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. The shield of scholars, I don't know. Largely. Right, so on number 10, have you got the text? Yeah, has everyone got the text? Yes. So, عاشرة الشكر عليها لما تتضمنه من فوائدها كما يشكر المريض الطبيب القطع أطرافه والمنع له من شهواته لما يتوقع في ذلك من بر والشفاء. So number 10, gratitude for it, for it comprises of benefits, as the sick shows gratitude to the doctor for severing a limb. That is a barrier to his passions when it occurs as healing or cure. So obviously when it looks awful if a doctor cuts off a limb, for example, of a person who's ill, but there would probably have been no other way to save that patient. So it's kind of like looking at a lesser of two evils in one way, that either we lose a patient or we lose a limb. So it's better to lose a limb in that situation. So even though to cut off someone's limb in normal circumstances wouldn't be a good thing to do, but to save that person, then that might have to happen. Kind of like in a football game, you can foul the other person if you're about to score a goal, to save them from scoring a goal. So it's the bigger picture. So I don't know what that's got to do with the Benefits of Tribulation. There's an interesting report from Ali, saying Ali radiallahu anhu, who says, Ya Ibn Adam, so O son of Adam, La tafrah bil ghina, do not be joyous about riches, Wala taqnat bil faqr, and do not be hopeless because of poverty, Wala tahsan bi bila, and do not be sad about tribulation. ولا تفرح بالصراخ. Do not be happy about it's like great ease really, or riches. It's something like riches. فإن الذهب كما يجربه بالنار, because gold is purified by fire. And then in an abd yaslah yujarribahu bibala, and the servant is rectified by being burned, if you will, by tribulation. فإنك لا تنال ما تريد إلا بترك ما تشتهي, and you will not attain to what you want except by leaving what you desire. وَلَن تَبْلَغْ مَا تَوَلَّمَّلُ إِلَّا بِالصَّبْرِ عَلَى مَا تَكْرَهُ, and you will not attain to what you hope for except by patience upon what you dislike. وَبَدَلُ جُهْدَكَ لِرَعَاءِ مَا أُفْرِدَ عَلَيْكَ, and being exerting yourself to observe what is obligatory for you. So that was reported in Harith al-Muhasibi's Risala Mustashirin. It's very nice. It's not in your text actually. There's another hadith, so it might have been tested on it might have been something related to the other hadith from report by Abu Umama radiallahu anhu. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله ليجرب أحدكم ببلاء وهو أعلم به كما يجرب أحدكم بالذهب بالنار فمنهم يخرج كذهب أبريز فذلك الذي نجاه الله تعالى من سيئاته ومنهم يجرب كذهب دون ذلك فذلك الذي يشق بعد الشق ومنه يجرب كالذهب أسود فذلك الذي قد فتن. So the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah tests one by tribulation, and He is more knowledgeable of it, as you would burn, as one of you would be tested like gold is in fire. Because when you want to make pure gold, you've got to put it in the fire to burn off all the sort of dross, if you will, to get it all off. And so until you do that, it's not pure gold. So minhum man yujarrib yakhruj kadhahab al-ibris. Some of them come out like pure gold. And so he is successful by Allah. So Allah has given him success over his sins. And there are some that have come out less than this, and they have doubt in them, so they have some doubt. So, and some of them have, they come out black, and so these are the ones that have suspicion in them. So it's also about the state of the heart. What's the state of the heart like when you're having tribulations, things like that. And so basically, to be pure gold, someone has to go through the fire, and the fire obviously is not comfortable, but the end result is good. So those are two hadiths that I thought was quite relevant to this situation here. الحادية عشرة تحميسها لذنوب وخطايا ما أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما أصابكم من مصيبة كما كسبت أيديكم ويعفو عن كثير سورة الشعراء 30 ولا يصيب حديث ولا يصيب مؤمن وصبا ونصبا حتى الهم يتهمه وشوقه يشاقها إلا كفر به عن سيئاته. So number 11, purification or purify one from sins of errors. So it's from the Quran, that one. So you are not afflicted by an affliction except that. So it was what your hands earned. I need to check that actually. And He pardons much. So early said in the end of that 40 Benefits of Tribulation, said that this is probably one of the most hopeful ayahs of the Quran, because if you are given tribulation and it burns up, you're given tribulation because of what you've done by your own hands, and then what happens is you're getting those sins back, and then after those sins have gone, because you've had some tribulation because of the sins you've done. So after the tribulations are gone, and Allah's Yarfu and Kathir is forgiven a lot, and then what's going to be left basically after that? There's not left, is there? So early, saying early, so this was one of the most hopeful ayahs of the Quran, because after getting the tribulation back after the from what someone has done, and then a lot has been forgiven or pardoned, then there's not going to be much left. Inshallah. And then the hadith, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a believer is not afflicted by difficulty, hardship, even an anxiety that causes concern, a thorn that pierces, except that it's expiation for his wrong actions. So even something as small as a pinprick will forgive someone's sins. So sometimes we've got to change the way we look at things sometimes, because sometimes we look at things, we understand it the way that non-Muslim will understand it, which is what's good is good and what's bad is bad. But it's not like that. So number 12, الثاني عشر رحمة أهل البلاء ومساعدهم على بلواهم والناس معفى ومبتلى فارحموا أهل البلاء واشكروا الله على العافية وإنما يرحم العشاق من عاشقا. Okay. So show mercy to those in tribulations and to assist them in afflictions. So this is a benefit for us. So even if the problem doesn't hit us, sending money abroad to places that have been hit by calamities is a good thing, because even for them, even for us, we have a chance to earn some reward by trying to help them, sending some money, even if it's a small amount. A small amount here might help someone save their life, maybe, you never know. So it's a big deal, really. Even just a tenner, it's not a big deal. I mean, the problem is sometimes you don't know who to go to, because you can't trust a lot of people, and some people are just putting the money in the back of their pockets and things like that. But as long as you've made an intention that it's gone, as long as you've made an intention that it's for the sake of Allah, then you shouldn't worry about if someone buys a Ferrari with it, because then they're responsible at the Day of Judgment, and you'll get that reward for whatever you made intention for. So show mercy to those in tribulations and assist them in their affliction. People free from tribulation show mercy to the people of affliction and show gratitude to Allah for well-being. Only those in love show mercy to those in love. So it's kind of, I think it's kind of the point of that last one is, if you, when you have tribulation and you see someone else who's had the same tribulation, then normally the normal reaction of most people is to have mercy because, oh yeah, I've been through that. But the problem is when people go through tribulation and they don't do the same to others. That's a problem. That's true as well, yeah. People don't, yeah, that's a lot true. So people don't understand what they don't appreciate things until they've been through something. Yeah, it is very difficult actually. Because a lot of times you just start, you start one day, you think they've got it one day, and then the next minute you're starting from scratch again, so it's very difficult, it's very frustrating. Okay, so number 13. معرفة قدر نعمة العافية والشكر عليها فإن النعمة لا يعرفه مقادرها إلا بعد فقدها. So I think this is taken a little bit from one of the Hikam of Ibn Atar al-Askandari, or something that he said, which is know the value of the blessing of well-being and show gratitude, as the value of the blessings are not realized until after they have gone. So we don't really know the value of something until it's gone, and then it's too late. So gratitude, very important gratitude, to be gratitude for things that we have. And the gratitude of the awliya was for things they don't have. But obviously, we when we lose things, then we actually know what the blessing of that thing was. Sometimes we don't really appreciate things when we have them. الرابع عشر ما عد الله تعالى على هذه فوائد من ثواب الآخرة على اختلاف مراتبها. So what Allah the Exalted has prepared from the benefit of the reward in the afterlife according to its intensity. Or it's basically, the greater the reward, the greater the tribulation. So the harder the tribulation is, the more reward is in store for that person. Number 15. الخامس عشر ما في طيها من فوائد خفية فعسى أن تقرأوا شيئا ويجعل فيه خير كثير. سورة النساء. عسى أن تقرأوا شيء وهو خير لكم وإن الذين جاءوا بالإفك عصبة فمنهم لا تحسبوا شرا لكم بل هو خير لكم. ولما أخذ الجبار السارية من إبراهيم كان في طريقه تلك البلاية ومصائب أن أحد أخادمها حاجة فولد إسماعيل لإبراهيم عليه السلام فكان من ذرية إسماعيل سيدنا المرسلين وخاتم النبيين فأعظم بذلك من خير كان في طريق تلك البلاء. Okay, let me just catch up with the English on that one. So, 15. What it conceals of subtle blessings. Perhaps we dislike something which Allah has placed much goodness. So someone might get ill, but their illness might actually be a purification for something that they're unaware of. Now sometimes getting ill is good actually because it stops you having power from doing bad things. So that's also a benefit of it being ill. So perhaps you dislike something which is good for you, because Allah really knows what's best for us. We don't really know, because sometimes we're like children, so we don't really know what's good for us. We're scrolling towards the candle, and we think it's something nice to play with. We won't realise that it's going to burn our hand.
So it's good to do Salat al-Istihara, isn't it? Making decisions.
Yeah, istikhara. Yeah, the Prophet, the Sahaba said the Prophet told them to make istikhara for like every major decision. There's something specific, I think. But the Salat al-Istikhara is good. It's a good thing to do, obviously. Major decisions. Well, then you get the problem, which sign do you get? So the problem is the facilitation. So if you pay Istikhara, then it's facilitated in one way, then that's the way it's going to work out. So when the oppressor wanted to take Sarah, so Sarah was Sarah was the name of Ibrahim's alayhi salam's wife, take away from Ibrahim, because I think he was taken. I think Ibrahim said that she was my as in Deen. They asked her who she was. If he'd have said she was his wife, they would have taken her. So he said that she was my sister, meaning sister in Deen. But they still took her, and basically before, because he wanted to take her as a wife, the king, but I think he fell ill or something, and then eventually just gave her a servant, gave Sarah a servant, which was Hajar, and then from Hajar, she eventually married Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, and then she gave birth to Ismail. And so then from the offspring of Ismail came the master of the messengers and the seal of the prophets, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So great was the good that was concealed in this affliction. So even though it looked quite difficult, and it would have been extremely difficult for Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam to deal with that situation, there was actually a good result from it, which is something we don't really see sometimes. Like, every cloud has a silver lining. I remember there was an interview with this famous actor, and he was about 60, 70 at the time, I think, and he said that, I've never had something bad happen to me in my life except that there's been some good in it. So you'd expect someone who gets to about 60 or 70 to understand a little bit more than what youngsters understand, which is just how to turn on the Xbox. Just joking. So someone said, how many blessings is concealed in the praise of affliction? وَكَمْ بِنِعْمَةٍ مَتْوِيَ لَكَ بَيْنَ ثَنَاءِ مُصَائِبٍ. So even the praise of someone can be affliction. Let believe in your own press. I remember one of these footballers said, "Don't believe your own press." He was getting lots of negative press for a move he made once to a different club, and then he said that I don't believe the press. So I don't believe the negative press. Don't believe the positive press. Which is a good way to be, actually, because a lot of people, when they're talking, they're just chatting, unfortunately. And the word for asa an yakuna shay'an takra'u shay'an. So asa here, according to Imam Qurtubi, means it will be. So he says that instead of saying perhaps that something you dislike something and Allah's placed great good in it, he's saying that definitely something that you dislike, Allah's put good in it. That's very interesting. So he's saying definitely. So he's using, instead of saying asa, because asa means like perhaps or something. So that's the first line on that 15.
Is that 12.6?
It's 15, Tribulation 15. So the first one on Tribulation 15 where it says perhaps. So perhaps you dislike something which Allah has placed much goodness in. He says that perhaps here, artha, means qad. Qad means definitely here in this situation. So he says definitely you'll dislike something which Allah has placed much goodness in. That's what Imam Qurtubi is saying, which is very interesting. And qad is also in the next one, perhaps you dislike something which is good for you. So he's saying it definitely you'll dislike something which is good for you.
Or is that not down to the nature of the person?
Can be. Can be.
The tawfiq that Allah's given them, because if they are orientated towards Allah,
Mm.
and then their like is what the desire of Allah.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
But a lot of people not like that. They'll get a tribulation and wonder about it for years. So, but some people, if they're close to Allah, when something happens to them, it just reminds them that Allah is there, sending them that thing. So it's very difficult. Actually, it's not an easy thing to do that. I think Rabbana Ta'ala Skandi says that the person should have relief knowing that the afflictor is Allah. So you should have relief that knowing that the reason why he's had his problem in his life is because Allah sent it there. So it should calm him down in that situation and not make him hopeless. Because being hopeless is the trick of shaitan.
Yeah, there's a correlation between you and Iman and how you deal with.
Yes. What's the ayah? Yeah, there is. Yeah. So basically, the more the stronger the iman someone has, the more they're going to be given tribulation. Actually, so the greater the tribulation, the greater the iman generally, and so that's why in the 40 hadiths about tribulation, we've got hadith 13 and 14, which is almost the same tribulation, where the Prophet ﷺ said, so he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, من المؤمنين أصاب بمصيبة فيتعزى بمصابته بي عن مصابة التي تصيبه بغيري فإن أحدا من أمتي لن يصاب بمصيبة بعدي أشد من عليها من مصيبتي. So whoever of the believers is afflicted by a calamity, then should seek solace in my tribulations from tribulations that will not be afflicted to any one of my nation, because none of the afflictions that I had they won't be as worse. So basically, none of my ummah will be afflicted with calamities worse than mine. There's another hadith that you're talking about actually, and there's a similar hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, إذا أصاب أحدكم مصيبة فليذكر مصائبه به فإنها من أعظم المصائب. So when one of you is afflicted by calamity, then remember the calamities that afflicted me, as they were the greatest calamities. So I was talking to some of the, because we're getting some of the kids to copy this out actually in some of the classes. So saying, you all have your parents. By the time the Prophet was 6, his mum died, his dad died before he was born. When he was 8 years old, he lost his grandfather. So imagine that at 8 years old, you don't have parents, you don't have a grandfather, you don't have any siblings, and then you've just got an uncle that's going to look after you. So, and then that's not counting the rest of the tribulations in his life. His wife died, his other uncle died eventually. People threw him out of Mecca, and they tried to kill him. His uncle died, was martyred on the battlefield. All his kids died, except for Fatima, and she died 6 months after he died. One of his grandchildren died, and there's no complaint. There's no hadith that the Prophet complained as well. There's no hadith that the Prophet said, that's a lot. So basically, the greatest tribulation falls on the prophets, and then it's those who are similar than those who are similar. I think we covered it last week, actually. I think we've covered it, or either we're going to cover it, or we might cover it now. Anyway, and then someone else said, perhaps odiousness and the dislike contain the subtlety of Allah. رب مغبوض قريه فيه لله لطائف. Right, number 16. السادسة عشرة إن مساعب والشدائد تمنع من شر وبطر وفخر وخلاء وتكبر وتجبر فإن التمرد لو كان سقيما فقد سمع وبصر لما حاج إبراهيم في ربه كان حمله بطر الملك في ذلك وقد على الله سبحانه وتعالى محاجته بإيتائه الملوك فقال ألم ترى الذين حاج إبراهيم في ربي أن أتاه الله الملك ولو ابتلى فرعون بمثل ذلك لما قال أنا ربكم الأعلى. Right, let me just catch up with the English. So 16. So tribulations prevents from evil, of hubris, which is like pride, haughtiness, which is similar to pride, conceitedness, pride, and forcing oneself over others. Nimrod was poor, ill, and devoid of hearing and seeing when Ibrahim came with a proof from his Lord. Yet he displayed arrogance by his dominion in this matter. Allah praised and exalted be He, had distracted him by giving him sovereignty. So even though it's a big king and he had lots of money and whatever, he was still poor because he didn't really have the most important thing. And so did he not see who Ibrahim argued over his Lord and Allah gave him sovereignty? So Pharaoh was afflicted by something similar. So he said, am I not your lofty Lord? That's what he said. Being completely arrogant, saying that he was a Lord. When Musa alayhi salam came to him and then told him that he was a messenger for Allah. And he says, am I not your Lord? He's displaying the height of arrogance, really. He just sat on his throne like that in the most disgraceful way. And so they could not take revenge except if Allah enriched them from His bounty. Mankind is insolent. He sees himself as self-sufficient. So most people say, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. وَمَا نَقْمُ أَنْ أَغْنَى عَنْهُمَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ سورة توبة إن الإنسان لا يتقى إن رآه استغنى سورة العلق لو بطش الله رزق لعبده لبغوا في الأرض واتبع الذين ظلموا ما أورفوا فيه لا أسقيناهم ماء غدقا نفتينهم فيه وما أرسلنا في قرية من نذير إلا قال مترفوها أن إنا بما أرسلتم به كافرون. So mankind is insolent and he sees himself self-sufficient. If Allah expands his provision for His servants, they would be insolent on earth. So if they will get too much money, then they will get arrogant, which is what happens unfortunately now when they get people with too much money and they go a bit potty, they win the lottery or whatever and spend £1 million on the toilet or something, and they are followed in the oppressors in their luxuries. They follow the oppressors in their luxuries, so the oppressors who have their big luxuries and things like that, because the hadith is very important. So what is it? Ad-dunya sijin al-mu'min wa jannat al-kafir. So if you understand this hadith, it helps quite a lot. So hadith in Tirmidhi. So the world is a prison of the believer and the paradise of the disbeliever. and there was I think a Jewish blacksmith, and he was covered in soot and everything like this, and he saw Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, and Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani was wearing fine clothes on, and he had a horse and everything, and he said, and he knew this hadith, the Jewish man knew this hadith, and he said, well, look at my state, look at your state, and so what paradise am I in, and what hell are you in, what jail are you in? And so Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, being smart as well, said that I'm in jail for compared to what's waiting for me, and you're in paradise compared to what's waiting for you. And so eventually, so that man became Muslim, so Ironmonger became Muslim. The poor and the weak are the men of Allah who follow the prophets, and this is a great blessing. الفقراء والضعفاء هم أولياء واتبعهم الأنبياء ولهذا فواعد الجلية كان أشد الناس بلاء الأنبياء ثم الصالحون ثم الأنفل في الأنفل فنسب إلى المجنون والسحر وكاهنة واستهزئ بهم وسخر منهم فصبروا وما كذبوا وقيل لنا أم حسبتم أن تدخلوا الجنة لما يأتي مثل الذين خلوا من قبلكم فمستهم البأساء والضراء وزلزلوا حتى يقول الرسول والذين معهم متى نصر الله ألا نصر الله قريب. So the poor and the weak of the men of Allah are those who follow the men of Allah and the prophets. And this is a great blessing. So this is the hadith you were referring to actually. So the severest people given tribulation are the prophets, and we sort of touched on that slightly by the tribulations that hit the Prophet. The righteous, then those like them. So it's actually a good sign for someone to get lots of tribulation. It's not a bad sign. It's good. But someone shouldn't be happy that someone else gets tribulation though. So it could be a good sign. So if someone has tribulation, you might be happy that they have it's a good sign for them. You can be happy like that, but not happy that they've had some tribulation. Like, oh, great, that guy's got ill, whatever. That's not a good thing to be doing. So they were ascribed with their insanity, being magicians, soothsayers, mockers, mocking and jest. So the prophets said they were crazy. They said they were magicians. Said they were soothsayers, mocking and jesting, and they mocked and jest them. They were patient under the denial of persecution. So that's very difficult, actually. People are cursing you and saying things to you. It's very difficult to be patient in that situation. So do you think that you will enter paradise and you'll not be afflicted by what came before, what came to those before you of misery, hardship, earthquakes, until the messenger and those who believe say, when is the victory of Allah? The victory of Allah is close. Oh, sorry. Right.
They described as insanity.
Yeah, they said they were crazy. They said the prophets were crazy. So these are all the things that they cursed, they said about the prophets.
Is that something that relates to the people, the righteous, and then them like them?
Well, yeah, it could be, yeah. That's a good point.
This reminds me of a person that used to live in Halifax.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very righteous person, mashallah. He used to always recite Quran. There was like a certain place in the mosque that he used to always used to sit, and looking back at it now, his attributes were the attributes of the righteous. But people used to laugh at him and mock him.
I wouldn't be surprised, because that's what people who don't understand things are like. That's what they're like. People don't like other people when they're not like themselves. So if I won't like this person if he's not like me. And that's just how human beings work, really. So, and obviously they're not going to be like they only are. So that's why they call it Ahl al-Ghuraba, the strangers. That's the other book that's downstairs translated. Yeah, so that's the description of them. They come in scruffy clothes. The caliphate, the whole point of the caliphate was to look after Muslims. That's the whole point of the caliphate. It's supposed to look after Muslims, and it's supposed to have the rights of Christians and Jews, because Christians and Jews have rights in Islam that we don't have in their religions. Because Muslims don't have a right in any rights in Judaism, and Christians don't have any rights of anyone else except for their own. So, but in Islam, we've been told that they've got rights and they've got rights. Christians and Jews both have rights. Lived there together for centuries in peace, with the exceptions of the Crusades, which was when the Christians came in and killed everyone. And even then, it was only about 50% Muslim when they came in and killed loads of people in Jerusalem. And even then, the majority was Jews and Christians. And even in Spain, the Jews welcomed the Muslims because they had no right in Christianity to own their own lands and do their own business and things like this. They could do certain things, but they couldn't own land. But when Islam came and we went to Spain, we gave them the right to actually own their own land. So, and then these guys are just killing, well, it's our religion. It's our religion or the sword. Well, the Prophet never said that. So what gives you the right of saying that? The whole point is that even in the Muslim world, and they're saying, Islam was spread by the sword. Well, it's just silly, because you still have a lot of minorities within the Muslim world that are non-Muslim. You've got quite a lot in Egypt, of the Coptic Christians. I think they're at least 30% in Egypt. It's just a lot. Because I remember when we went there and I saw a guy and we gave him salams and we looked at, he didn't return salam to us, and he looked at us like this, and I was like, what are you not giving me salam for? And then it turned out he was Christian.
Did he say that to him?
Well, he didn't say that to him. This was all between the eyes. This was all like, why are you not giving me salam? And he was like, Christian, I'm giving you salam. Like that, and and so look at India. If we had forced Islam by the sword, right? Why was there a majority Hindus, and other denominations possibly in India? And even after the collapse of the Mongols, after the British did their evil there, the majority was still Hindus. So after 400 or 500 years, if we'd have forced Islam by the sword, then there shouldn't have been any Indians there. They should have all been Muslim. So and same in Syria. There's still quite a lot of significant population, small population, I think, of Christians there. And in all Muslim countries, you've got small minorities of Christians and Jews as well, and Turkish Jews. Because the Turkish Jews came from Spain when the Christians came and just kicked everyone out who wasn't Christian. I remember the famous comedian Azhar Usman was making a joke about Islam being spread by the sword, and he was like, he said, this guy's gone to this. He said, if it's cream cheese, it's not like cream cheese that you spread by the sword, is it? And he said that this guy gone to this place to get a bagel, and he goes, I like a bagel. So what would you like on it? And he goes, would you like some cream cheese? He goes, yeah. Would you like some salad? Yeah. And would you like some Islam? I can spread it with my sword. Like this. Yeah. So it's not valid actually to force someone to into Islam. It's not valid, because the Prophet didn't do that. And if the Prophet could have done it, he would have done it in Mecca when he conquered Mecca. If he had wanted to do it, he could have done it then, and he didn't do it because he had the whole place under control, surrounded by 10,000 Sahaba, It could have flattened the whole place and forced him into Islam, but he never did anything like that.
It's free will, though, isn't it? It's a matter of belief if someone believes it. Because you'd have nifaq then.
Yeah, that's what nifaq is. Nifaq is when you say it on the tongue and it's not in the heart. So nifaq, hypocrisy, is when you say something on the tongue but the heart's saying the opposite. So there's another sidetracking. Sorry. So we shall test you by some fear, hunger, loss of wealth, life and fruits, glad tidings for the patient. So on that ayah, it seems a bit strange where you've got glad tidings for the patient, but it's actually linked into all of them. So Allah's saying we're going to test you with fear, hunger, loss of wealth, life and trials. But if you're patient, then glad tidings are for you. Because as we said last week, that the reward for the patient is beyond, is without reckoning. So if someone's given the patient to, if someone's patient with a situation, then they're given more than what they're given without reckoning, basically. So there's no limit to their reward, really, for being patient. So we shall afflict you in your health, yourself, and you'll hear much harm for those who are given the book before you. And that's very interesting ayah. So you shall be afflicted in your wealth and your health. And notice that wealth comes first. And you'll hear much harm for those who are given the book before you, and which we do hear a lot of harm for those who are given the book before us. So upon the sacrifice of the first community of Muslims, those who were driven out of their homes, so that's very difficult to have that occur to anyone. So they'd be driven out of their homes, had their wealth taken, and because what happens is once the Sahaba left their homes in Mecca, some of the other people in Mecca took their homes and sold them off and got the money. And so whatever was in their homes, what they couldn't take with them was sold off. And that's very difficult if you worked all your life for houses and homes and then it's been taken from you. So expelled from their homeland to another land. There were those who were killed at Uhud. And Uhud was described as Bala Hasana in the Quran, a good calamity. It's actually described as a good calamity. And that was about 70 Sahaba were shaheed in that battle. Bir Ma'una was when I think it was about 70. I think there was 70 companions who were killed, and they were all Quranic reciters, and they all memorized the whole Quran. And the Prophet had sent them with someone who had asked them to send someone to teach them about Quran, and he sent 70 Sahaba there, and then they'd killed them all. And then other those who got killed, the wound that afflicted the Prophet ﷺ, his tooth was broken. So this is all in Uhud, where he got wounded. He damaged the helmet on his head, so the helmet, because they tried to hit him with a blow on his face, and the helmet had embedded, some of the chainmail had embedded into his noble cheeks. Abu Uraidah al-Jarrah, isn't it? Yeah. So he actually took out, because some of the chainmail was stuck in the Prophet's cheek. So he actually took it out with his teeth. And he lost some teeth actually doing that, just so he wouldn't hurt the Prophet that much by taking it out with his, maybe it would have been a bit more difficult to take it out with his hands, maybe. So it probably indicates it was quite tiny, maybe, so that it'd gone in. So he took it out with his teeth, that Sahabi, maybe to save the Prophet from some pain, maybe. And then the notables were killed and mutilated. So these notables of a lot of the 70 Sahaba, including Hamza, the Prophet's beloved uncle, so he was killed martyred in Uhud, and his body was mutilated. And so they said that they only recognised him from his hands. I think his sisters recognised him from his hands. So that's gives you an indication to how much he was mutilated, and his liver was taken out by Hind, who bit on it and then cast it aside. But she did actually become Muslim later on, and the Prophet did accept her Islam, and he accepted the Islam of Wahshi, who was the expert spearman who threw the spear at Hamza, and he was just interested really in just getting his freedom. It wasn't anyone's side really, and he became Muslim. The Prophet accepted Islam, which is a miracle in itself really. And he killed, and Wahshi killed the Musaylima, the false prophet. And then he said, I killed the worst. He said, I killed the best servant of Allah, and I killed the worst. So the best servant of Allah was Hamza, and the worst was Musaylima, who was the imposter prophet, or imposter, a liar. He wasn't a prophet, he was just a liar. He claimed to have something he didn't have. And like he'd put his hand over, because the Prophet used to wipe his hand over children's heads, and so he did the same thing, and then the child lost all his hair. The enemies became haughty and grieved over their patrons, and look at the tribulation of the trench. So the tribulation of the trench was very difficult because they had like 10,000 or more. I think it was 10,000 or more. There was all the tribes basically, all the tribes waiting outside Mecca, waiting outside Medina to basically finish them all off. And had they had not dug that trench, which is the idea of the Sahabi Sulaiman al-Farisi, had he had not put that idea forward, which was the Persian tactic of war, they would have flattened Medina, because there was that many soldiers out there. I think there was I can't remember exactly how many there were, but there was enough to flatten everyone basically, kill everyone in the whole of Medina at the time. And Allah sent a really bitter wind that kept him at bay. So the believers were given severe tribulation, and they were met with severe shock. And so we don't really appreciate what the Sahaba did really, to be honest. In that early period of Islam, they went through a lot. They really did. They went through, a lot. And as soon as a Sahaba had got to Medina, the pagan Quraysh had sent them basically a letter saying that, you've taken in our person that's left us, and we're declaring war on you, and we're going to finish you all off and kill you all off. So that's why a lot of the Sahaba had swords in they slept near their swords and things, because they were scared that they didn't know when they were going to attack and things. So it was actually the Quraysh that actually declared war on them first, or the pagan Quraysh, to be more exact. I mean, some of that was other people that did become Muslim afterwards as well, so that's worth mentioning as well. So when their eyes swerved and their hearts reached their throats, this is when they were in constant fear. They were constantly exposed to abject poverty until they tied stones to their stomachs out of hunger. So this is referring to the 2 years of boycott, which they in Mecca, when they basically made a boycott with the tribe of Hashim, that they wouldn't trade with them, and they wouldn't let them marry, and they wouldn't let anyone else trade with them, and basically it was a complete boycott, and they wouldn't sell anything to them, and so basically they retreated to their area and they stayed there, and they suffered quite heavily actually. A lot of them made great sacrifices, and a lot of them spent a lot of their wealth just trying to get food and things like this. And it was quite a long period, and then that probably contributed to the death of Khadija, probably, radiyallahu anha, and then other Sahaba as well. The master of the first and the last, may Allah be pleased with him, was not satiated by wheat for 2 consecutive days. So he didn't eat his full. So one day he ate his full, next day he might have not had his full. Unlike us, we eat till we can't move, and then we eat a bit more. So they were harmed by many types of hurt until being discarded was more beloved to them. And they were tested for the last time by Musaylibah al-Dulayya al-Ansai. So those were 3 false prophets, or those were people who had claimed prophethood, and basically the companions finished these guys off. So the companions, they went through a lot. Right, I just need to catch up on the Arabic. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. وَلَيَبْلَوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَالنَّقْصِ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنْفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. So Baqarah, لِيَبْلِوْنَ فِي أَمْوَالِكُمْ وَأَنْفُسِكُمْ لَتَسْمَعُنَّ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ من الذين أشركوا أذى كثيرا الذين أخرجوا من دياركم وأموالكم تقربوا عن أوطانهم وكثر عناهم فاشتدت بلاءهم وتضافر أعداءهم وتغلبوا في بعض المواطن وقتل منهم بأحد وبئر معونة وغيرهما من القتل وشجع وجه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وكسرت رباعيته وهشمت البيضة عن رأسه وقتلت عزه ومثل بهم فشمت أعداءهم وغناهم أولياءهم وابتلى يوم الخندق وزلزلوا زلزالا شديدا وإذ زغبت الأبصار بلغت قلوب الخنادق فكفروا في الخوف ذلك وعلي الألزام وفقير مدفق حتى شدوا حجر في بواطنهم من جوع ولم يشبع سيد الأولين وآخرين من خبز البر في يوم مرتين فأدوى بأنواع أذية حتى قذفوا حب إليه ثم ابتلى في آخر مرة بمسيلبة والطليحة والعنسية ولقي وهو أصحابه من جيش العسرة ما لقوه وماتوا ودرعوا مرؤوة عند يهود على أصحاء من شعير ولم تزل الأنبياء والصالحون يتعمدوا بالبلاء وقت بعد وقت ويبتلى الرجل على قدر دينه فإن كان صلبا من دين شدد في بلاء لقد كان أحدهم يودع من نشار على مفرقه فلا يصد عن دينه قال عليه الصلاة والسلام مثل المؤمن كمثل الزرع لا تزال ريح تمليح ولا يزال المؤمن يصيبه بلا قال عليه الصلاة والسلام مثل المؤمن كمثل الخامية من زرع تقوه الريح وتسرعها مرة تعدل أخرى حتى تحيج. Okay, so let's catch up with the English. So, the companions faced the army of Ursula, so they had to prepare an army for the Ursula, which is quite a large battle. I think it was against the Romans at the time, I think. They were killed and thrown into the well by the Jews over Sanar wheat. So some of them were killed over a portion of wheat. So the Prophet and the righteous remain pledged to the tribulation time after time. So they didn't change. These things that happened to them didn't change them. So they didn't start to say, well, okay, that's it, we're done now. See you later. They kept going. So a person is afflicted according to the extent of his religion. So basically, the stronger the person is in deen, the stronger that the tribulation comes to him. As firm as he is in his religion, as severe is the tribulation. It's the same thing. So the firmer he is in religion, the severer the tribulation. One One had a saw placed over his center of his head, and it did not make them turn away from the religion. So this is from another hadith of the people of the past, and what used to happen is they used to tear the skin from their flesh by like a comb that was like a metal comb. But that didn't make them leave their religion, because that's how they used to torture them in the old days, believers. And the Prophet ﷺ said, the believer is like a plantation, he is not free from wind moving, and the believer is not free from being afflicted by tribulations. So as long as he's moving, he's going to be afflicted by tribulations. So the Prophet ﷺ said, the similitude of the believer is a cane in a field, moving in the wind. It is being lowered once, and straightened the next until it dries out, and he dies. So the state of the servant in severity and affliction is directed to Allah, so that's where he should be. So the state of the person should be directed to Allah in severity in his tribulation. And the state of the servant in well-being and affluence is that he is away from Allah. So when someone's having a tribulation, they're more directed to Allah when they're not. So when someone's got lots of things happening and lots of blessings, blah blah blah, he's actually further away from Allah than the person who's actually in tribulation, because that person in tribulation is actually close to Allah in his tribulation. So when a man is afflicted, he calls us, Allah, on his side, sitting or standing, but when he's removed his affliction from him, he moves as if he was not afflicted by harm. So after Allah has given him his tribulation, and the point of tribulation was for him to call him, but to thank him after the tribulation was removed. But what he does is that he just goes back to how he was before and doesn't change.
There's a social indication there, isn't there, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always sends trials and tribulations towards the believer, in that the believer always turns to him when he's in trial and tribulation.
Yeah.
So it's always like there is a greater good in there, because he's always making the believer turn back to him.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's So I think we said that a little bit, we touched on that last week as well, which is that it turns the believer back to Allah. And the state of the person in need of Allah is greater than the state of the person typically when they have lots of things in well-being and affluence and riches and things like that. They are people who have lots of riches and they're very grateful to Allah, but that's very rare. You'll very rarely find a person who's rich and be extremely grateful to Allah. Most of the time it's the opposite. Reasons that there is a decrease in your food, drinks, clothes, partners, gatherings, homes and mouths. So being in this state means that you turn to Allah, the exalted, mighty and majestic, by accepting it. So it's all these reasons why it's actually really good. So let me just catch with that Arabic. فحال شدة والبلوى متقابلة بالعبد إلى الله عز وجل حالة عافية ونعمة وصار صريفة للعبد عن الله تعالى. إذا مس الإنسان دعا لجنبه أو قاعدا أو قام فلما كشفنا عن ضر مرة كأن لم يدعونا إلى در مسه. سورة يونس. والأجل هذا تقله في المكالي والمشارب والملابس والمناكح والمجالس والمساكن والمتراكب وغير ذلك لتكون على حالة توجب لهم والرجوع إلى الله تعالى عز وجل وإقباله عليه. So number 17. So we reached the last one. So I'll just read the Arabic so we can finish it off properly. And السابع عشر الرداء موجب لرضوان الله تعالى. إن المصاعب تزيل بالبر والفاجر فمن سقطها فله سقط وخسران الدنيا والآخرة. من رديعها فله رداء ورداء أفضل من الجنة وما فيها لقول تعالى ورضوان من الله أكبر. سورة توبة. أي من جنة عدن ومساكنها الطيبة فهذا نبذ مما حصل من فوائد البلوى ونسأل الله تعالى عفو وعافية في الدين والدنيا آخرة ونسأل آمين ومن رجال البلوى وفقنا الله تعالى للعمل بما يحبه ويرضاه وبرنا من محن والزراء والرزاء وتمت الفوائد بحمد الله ومنته لطائفه وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه تسليما وحسبنا ونعم الوكيل. كان فراغ منه لتسع خوالين من شهر ربيع الأول سنة 55 و600 غفر الله للقارئه وسمعه وكاتبه ولجميع المسلمين والحمد لله وحده. Ameen. So joy according to the pleasure of Allah exalted. So you should have joy, because afflictions descend on the pious and the unrighteous. But the pious realize it's from Allah. The unrighteous don't really realize this. So for the pious, they have a greater blessing than the unrighteous. So whoever is angered by this has lost the world and the afterlife, and whoever is pleased with it is pleasing to Allah, i.e. in brackets. Being content is better than paradise and what it contains by the speech of Allah. The pleasure of Allah is greater, meaning the Garden of Eden and the abodes of goodness. So the pleasure of Allah is greater than paradise. So if someone's happy when they've had a tribulation, it doesn't mean they start laughing and joking and go, I've just lost so-and-so, someone's died or whatever. It doesn't mean that. It just means that internally that they're not unhappy, because we come into this dunya with nothing and we're going to leave with nothing, so really we haven't lost anything. I think that was from that song, always look on the bright side of life. From these fragments we prove that the benefits of misfortune. We ask Allah Ta'ala the exalted for pardon and well-being in the world and the afterlife. And we are not the men of misfortune. May Allah give us success in our actions by what He loves and pleases. And He frees us from tribulations and trials and tribulations. The benefits are complete by the praise, gift and gentleness of Allah. May Allah bless the Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions with the greatest salutations. He is sufficient for us and a great protector. It was completed in 9 days left of Rabiul Awwal. That's how they used to say. They used to say 9 days left of Rabiul Awwal. So we'd say, I don't know, there's 13 days left of August or something. In the year 655. May Allah forgive its reader, me, those who hear it, you, those who write it, the writer, and all the Muslims, and so that's everyone. And all praise belongs to Allah alone. And then that's just my addition. I normally add that to the translation. So all praise belongs to Allah, the Almighty, the Exalted, for His assistance, support, and the completion of the text. Nothing is completed without His support. And may endless salutations and benedictions and blessings be upon the final messenger, the prophets, the Ahlul Bayt, and the companions. Ameen. And there's just a nice quote from Imam Ghazali here in the footnotes, who said, إِذَا رَأَيْتَ Allah Azza wa Jal يَحْبَسَ عَنْكَ dunya. So if you see that Allah has withholding something for you in the dunya, يَكْثُرُ عَلَيْكَ الشِّدَّةُ وَالْبَلَايَا, and He's increased severity and tribulations upon you, فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّكَ عَزِيزٌ عِنْدَهُ. So know that you are exalted with Him. فَإِنَّكَ عِنْدَهُ بِمَكَانٍ, and you have a rank with Him. وَإِنَّهُ يَسْلَكُ بِهِ الطَّرِيقَ مِنَ الْأَوْلِيَاءِ وَالصُّفَحَاءِ. So He has made you traverse the path of the awliya and the elite. فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ وَلَا يَحْتَاجَ إِلَى ذَلِكَ. So He sees you at this, and you did not seek it, I think. You were not in need of it. فَأَمَّا تسمع إلى ذلك? Have you not heard what تسمع إلى قول تعالى? Have you not heard the speech of Allah? واصبر لحكم ربك فإنك بأعيننا. Be patient upon the ruling of your Lord, because you are in our care. بل أعرف منته عليك فيما يحفظ عليك من صلاتك وصلاحك. Rather, or moreover, know that His grace upon you in that which He has preserved you on in your prayer and your righteousness. وَيَكْثُرُ مِنْ أُرْجُوكَ وَثَوَابِكَ. And He's increased your reward and your recompense. وَيَتَنَزَّلْ لَكَ مَنَازِلَ الْأَبْرَارِ وَالْأَخْيَارِ وَالْأَعْزَاءِ عِنْدَهُ. And He has placed you in a rank of the pious and the elite and the mighty with Him. Bless Imam Ghazali. We can't really go without talk without mentioning Imam Ghazali, really. But so the point being is, don't worry. It's a good sign. The person who has tribulation is a good sign. It's not a bad sign. I mean, we understand it's a bad sign because we don't understand what things are really. We don't understand the reality of things. That's why we understand things as a bad sign. It's not a bad sign. Also asking, there's a point someone mentioned that was always ask for afia, which is well-being, and not ask to be patient, because one of the Sahaba asked to ask Allah for patience, and what happened was that he got a tribulation, he got an illness that no one else had seen in Medina, and then it was very strange, and then the Prophet came to him and asked him what happened, and then he said, well, I made a dua to get patience, and the Prophet said, don't do that, because you're not going to be able to bear it, and just ask Allah for afia. And when he asked Allah for afia, the illness went. So he asked Allah for afia.
There's a dua, isn't there, that says asking for afia. Yeah, so you're asking for afia for this world and the other and then the dunya, the deen, and the hereafter.
Yeah, نسأل الله العافية في الدين الدنيا والآخرة. I think it's in Hizb al-Bahr actually.
It's in with the Latif. It's in with the Latif as well.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we ask Allah for afia, inshallah, and I don't know, is there any more questions, or is it wrapped up, inshallah? Yeah, so if we just read Fatiha for the Sheikh.